This episode was created with the support of Free FM, Hamilton, New Zealand's community access media organisation. Visit us at freefm.org.nz.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Rethinking Mental Wellbeing. This is our community podcast where we can talk about everything related to depression and anxiety. So my name is Andre and I want to thank you for being with me over the next half an hour as we share the space of lived experience where we can talk about how to live the best version of our authentic life. So, if you're ready, then I'm ready. Welcome to the podcast. If you're here for the first time, then I welcome you to this space. If you've been here before, then welcome back to the space. What if I told you that there is a tool that can dramatically reduce the effects of anxiety and help with the effects of stress within your brain and your body? And what if I told you that there is also a tool that can dramatically increase the effects of anxiety and panic within your body? And what if I told you it's the same tool, but used in a completely different way? What if I told you that you're already using this tool every day, every hour, every minute, 24/7, 365 days a year? This is a tool you can learn to manipulate to your advantage to help with anxiety, and that you will feel the effects and benefits of by helping get anxiety under control in real time. This will probably be the main tool that will get utilized by you the most often, as it's easily accessible to use. You don't have to practice it to master this tool, but you do have to practice it to get better at remembering to use it and how to use it well. For those of us who live with anxiety or a high level of stress, it becomes critical that we develop a toolkit of tools and techniques to employ strategies to alter our internal landscape, so things within our body, and our external landscape, the world around us, for the purpose of changing our landscape of anxiety. For many of us, though, we either don't know about the tools, or if we know of the tools, don't know how to use them properly, or just keep forgetting to use them. So kind of think of a mechanic who only has a screwdriver in their toolkit. A one-tool mechanic will be limited to the jobs that only require that specific tool. There may be other tools in their toolkit, but if they don't know how to utilize them effectively, then they just kind of sit in the toolkit unused and not doing what they're designed to do. And just like this mechanic, there needs to be a range of tools in our toolkit that we can use. Long-term lifestyle maintenance and servicing tools that we can use as a framework for well-being. And these include things like exercise, eating well, sleeping well, the connections we have, activities that provide meaning and purpose, and getting our needs met. We also need certain tools that we can make quick repair jobs, like knowing how to deal with moments of panic and overwhelm. In other words, tools that we can use for our emergency repairs. And when we have a range of tools that we can use for a wide variety of purposes, we feel more equipped to meet the challenges that come our way. And with the practice of these tools, we will become more confident. So in today's session, I'm going to teach you some tools that you can learn and practice that will be used more often than any other tool in your toolkit because, as we said before, it's the most easily accessible to manipulate. We are, of course, talking about breathing. And in this episode, we're going to talk about how breathing affects our anxiety, both in a positive way and in a negative way, and how we can manipulate our breathing to reduce the effects of anxiety and panic. I'm going to start this episode off with a disclaimer though. If you're listening to this and you have any respiratory issues, then please do not practice this until you consult with your doctor first. This episode is offering general discussion points, offering general tools. It is your doctor or medical professional that will turn these tools into something specific for you that fits around your needs and your requirements. Oxygen is the one thing that most living organisms need to survive. It is essential for our growth and our development. Oxygen is what keeps the brain and our cognitive system functioning properly, and it feeds our organs and our cells within our body. Oxygen helps and enhances our immune system, and we need a certain amount of oxygen to be circulating in our blood, bringing oxygen and other nutrients to all parts of the body, because all our systems in our body depend on oxygen to make energy so they can keep working. And breathing is the mechanism that our body uses to get that oxygen into our system. Breathing is also the language that your nervous system understands. And if you're like me who lives with anxiety, this information becomes critically useful, because anxiety is not only a mental health issue, it is a nervous system issue and a breathing issue. The world we live in, the environment we find ourselves in, the busyness and the stress wrapped in our day, the worries and overthinking, the expectations and demands that we place on ourselves, the anxieties we wear, and our health conditions all contribute to the way that we breathe. We breathe either too fast or too rapid, or too shallow or too slow. And if both of these are not matching the conditions and the environment that we're in, or doesn't match with our metabolic needs, then our breathing is out of alignment and out of balance from its preferred breathing state. According to James Nestor, the author of the book Breathe, our constantly over-breathing causes our adrenaline and blood sugar to spike, and remaining in that state wears the body down further. He also mentions that people who have anxiety are especially prone to breathing far beyond their metabolic needs. An example of this is when you're at the gym. Your breathing when exercising will be rapid and fast, which fits the environment you're in, because that fits your needs and energy requirements of your metabolism. But if you're at home watching TV and breathing in the same fast-paced way, then that doesn't fit the requirements of your environment, and it is an environment to breathing mismatch. On average, and I want to stress this is on average, we breathe in about 6 liters of air or oxygen per minute. This is about 12 to 14 breaths per minute. Over-breathing is essentially anything from 16 breaths per minute and over. It is this over-breathing, though, that sends a signal to your brain to become more excitable. We are telling our nervous system through this type of breathing to activate the fight-flight response. And it's this type of breathing that makes your internal system feel a state of panic and agitation. When we are under stress or feeling anxious or overwhelmed, it will affect and change the way that we breathe. There is an exchange relationship between oxygen, our breathing in, and carbon dioxide, our breathing out. This exchange is really important, and biologically we prefer to be in balance with this exchange. So, in other words, the right amount of oxygen and the right amount of carbon dioxide. Because too much oxygen or too much carbon dioxide or too little of both leads to health concerns and health risks, and it also leads to feelings of panic, anxiety, and overwhelm. You may have heard of the term hyperventilation. This is when we are breathing too quick or deeply, resulting in low levels of carbon dioxide in the blood. Hypoventilation is when we are breathing too slowly or shallow, resulting in a high level of carbon dioxide in your blood. You can feel the effects of a high level of carbon dioxide when you hold your breath. Don't do it now, but when you take a deep breath in and hold it, your blood is now saturated with oxygen. After a time, though, you're going to feel a hunger to let that breath out. In other words, you have less oxygen in your blood and a buildup of carbon dioxide. It is this buildup of carbon dioxide That is the reason why you feel a need to not breathe in, but to breathe out after holding your breath. And you breathe out so the buildup of that carbon dioxide from holding your breath can be expelled, and then you take another inhale of oxygen to replenish and get the levels back into balance again. So why is all this important? Because that feeling of needing to breathe correctly when you are not is your body's signaling either a lack of air or a buildup of carbon dioxide, telling you that your breathing is out of optimal balance. This is what we call air hunger. So this carbon dioxide buildup, which in turn triggers the brain's suffocation alert system, tries to rebalance by creating a hunger for air. And it's this alert alarm system that feels like suffocation to us. This makes us feel agitated. It makes us feel more panicked and more overwhelmed. And we are feeding anxiety the fuel it needs to keep going, which is this off-centered exchange between oxygen and carbon dioxide. So again, just to go over these key points, if you retain too much carbon dioxide in your body and therefore not enough oxygen in your blood, you overbreathe to try and get more required oxygen, and you are now then hypoventilating. Hyperventilation is when you expel too much carbon dioxide. Both of these create a sense of panic inside your body that triggers this feeling of suffocation. Now you are not only stressed or anxious, you are now internally in a state of panic because our body is telling us we have either too much of this or not enough of this. And either one of those states causes an imbalance in our system. We are now out of balance, and our body responds appropriately, seeking to find ways to balance this delicate exchange by sending that signal of air hunger that we feel as panic. This balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide is constantly monitored by our internal system. And something else that I've talked about in previous episodes is our biological survival detector mechanism that we call fight or flight or freeze response. This is our ability to kick into high gear into survival mode if we perceive a threat. This fight-flight response makes us ready to move. This gives us a sense of agitation and urgency. And so the quickest, most effective way that we can get this balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide back into a place of harmony is to consciously adjust our breathing. And the quickest way to tell our alert system to stand down, that we're okay, that we're safe, that nothing is hurting us, is also to consciously adjust our breathing. Breathing is the universal language that your nervous system understands. And breathing will be useful as a first responder by getting that balance of oxygen and carbon dioxide back into balance, therefore telling our brain and our body to stand down. So we're always breathing by default, that is, without consciously having to think about it. But your breathing will match the same frequency of your internal landscape, so things within your body. That includes thinking, your worries, your emotions, the impact of how we respond to stresses, how we fuel our body, and the things going on within our body, and your external landscape, so things outside your body, the overstimulation of the world around you, loud noises, large crowds, cluttered spaces, stressful social interactions, and even temperature all contribute to the sensory overload that impacts on your breathing. So let me illustrate that for you. You could be in the most calm, tranquil, peaceful environment, but if your internal landscape is overwhelmed with stresses and worries, emotions, panic, and distress, then your breathing will match that frequency. Your environment may be chaotic or overwhelming or overloading your senses, then your breathing will match that frequency. Both of these landscapes creates the sensation of overwhelm and panic. So breathing by default and left to its own devices will match the environment that demands the highest need. It takes a conscious effort to adjust your breathing to change the landscape of stress or anxiety. But when we understand that when we don't breathe well, that even the sensation of overwhelm is your brain and your body trying to communicate that you are outside of your preferred sensory frequency, then we can manipulate how we perceive both of these environments by the way we consciously and with intention adjust our breathing. If you do a simple Google search on relaxing breathing techniques, you're going to get tens of thousands of hits. And it's all too easy to get swamped in the volume of choices that are available to you. So I'm going to give you some general rules that can apply specifically to anxiety. So whether it's from an imbalance of this carbon dioxide or oxygen, or a nervous system reaction of being switched on ready for battle, this type of breathing that I'm about to show you follows a specific structure that your biology will interpret and understand. So this isn't about belief. It's not about your interpretation. It's not even about intellect. But breathing is the language of your biology. And because it's our biology we're speaking to by the way we breathe, it can be more effective than trying to get your mind and your brain back online when you're in a state of panic and overwhelm. So when it comes to anxiety or any kind of panic or stress exposure, we need to have quick and effective ways to be able to communicate to our nervous system that we are safe, that we are not in danger, that nothing is hurting us. Anxiety or panic are extremely difficult to try and have to think your way out of. In a state of anxiety or panic, we very quickly hyper-focus on the best ways out of the situation. But that often will only work if those ways out are known to us beforehand. If I was to go into a shopping mall and my social anxiety kicked in and I started to get overwhelmed, I would immediately be looking for the exits and for the places that would be quieter to get out of this overwhelming sensory overload and back into a state of balance and harmony. If I knew the area well and I knew the exits and the quiet places, I would be tuning in and narrowing my focus to make those exits stand out more. But if I didn't know where I was, if it was a completely new shopping mall and I didn't know where the exits were, I would become even more overwhelmed because I don't know what to focus on. And then I can't focus on the things I need to focus on, and that is a way out. And when we are in a state of this fight, flight, or freeze response, the part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex that you use to plan your way out or to find a solution, starts to slow down and becomes less effective. And I do want to stress again that if you have any respiratory issues, then discuss these with your doctor first to see if they work for your specific situation. Andrew Huberman is a neuroscientist and podcaster. He is an associate professor of neurobiology at the Stanford University School of Medicine. He also hosts the very popular Huberman Lab podcast. This is known as the physiological sigh. But before I get into that one, I'm going to talk about sighing in general and why we even do that in the first place. Some of the reasons why we sigh could be that there is an emotion behind it, like boredom or frustration. Sighing changes the level of oxygen in your blood as we take a deep breath in that is roughly about 2 to 5 times more volume of air than a normal breath we take. It inflates your lungs. We sigh when we've held our breath because we've been maybe concentrating on something. But no matter what the reason, the thing they all have in common is that you're not breathing properly. This could be due to stress, could be due to anxiety. But no matter what the cause, your biology is trying to get you back into that state of breathing balance again. And so we take a deep breath in that we call sighing. Have you ever noticed that you sigh a lot under stress or when you're anxious? So now you know why. It's almost like your body is saying, hey, you're not breathing properly. So let me just reset that for you. And you take a deep breath in. But without that conscious awareness and focus of why you are doing that, our emotions will again drive our breathing to the familiar patterns and speed that stress and anxiety have set for us. So this specific type of sighing, this physiological sigh, is something that we do often throughout the day. We do it while we're sleeping, and we're often doing it without even knowing we're doing it. We do it when levels of carbon dioxide get too high in our body. and to bring ourselves back to a place of balance between carbon dioxide and oxygen. We do this when we've been holding our breath for concentration or for other reasons. We do this just before we go to sleep, and we do it in deep sleep. And even animals will do this. So if you have a dog, for instance, just before it goes to sleep, it lays down on its bed, it'll do this specific type of breathing. We also do this type of breathing when we've been crying. And the sobbing part of crying is this type of breathing in action. This is your biology trying to comfort you because you are clearly emotionally upset, which your biology registers as distress and therefore tries to calm you down by this type of breathing. So neuroscientists and psychologists call this the physiological sigh. This type of sighing works in real time. You can use this immediately, and you'll almost immediately feel the benefits of this within your body. And just like any type of breathing though, this is not an anxiety cure, but it is designed to reduce the negative effects of anxiety within your body by rebalancing your breathing. So what I'm going to do is walk you through how to do this, then I'm going to demonstrate this once, and then we're going to practice this twice so you can see how to do it and follow along with me. So the way to do this is you're going to take 2 breaths in and a longer breath out. So the first breath in is a deep breath, like you're taking a breath to hold it. But when you've done that, you're going to draw in another quick, short breath in. You're not going to be able to get much more breath into that second breath. So it's literally a quick breath, almost like another gasp in. And when you breathe out, though, you're breathing out at a pace that is slower than you're breathing in. Almost like you have a candle that's lit about a foot away from your face, and you're exhaling so the flame flickers without the flame going out. And that's the trick. The exhale becomes longer than you're breathing in, because that type of breathing is talking directly to your nervous system, telling it to stand down and to rest. So it's 2 inhales and a long exhale. So let me demonstrate this for you. So we're taking a deep breath in first, and then another breath in, and then slowly breathing out. If you're doing this for the first time and learning how to do this, you will know you breathed out fully because your shoulders will move down and you'll feel the clothes over your shoulder start to move. So let's do this together. Let's take a deep breath in and another one, and then breathe out. You don't have to make the noise. I'm just making the noise for illustration purposes, okay? Let's do this once more. Take a deep breath in. And another one. And then out. There's this beautiful place at the bottom of that out breath, if you've done this a few times. And you notice in that place, you don't have to immediately take another breath in. You can sit in this non-breathing state for a few seconds. That, for me, is the most peaceful place on earth. And your breathing out offloads the excess carbon dioxide that you have in your body that gives you that sense of panic. So the purpose of this specific type of breathing is to reduce the feeling of panic, to get your cognitive function back online, and to start to relax your body a bit. You can repeat this 10 to 15 times, but you'll feel the effects of this in your body after repeating it only 2 or 3 times. But it's really important that you feel the differences between before you did it and after you've done it. So again, let's make it quite clear that these breathing techniques will not necessarily get rid of anxiety, because that's not the focus. But rather, it's a tool that you can use significantly to reduce it down so you can employ other tools to help you through it. So that's the first tool, the physiological sigh, a quick, effective breathing technique that you can use at any time for anxiety or anxiety type conditions. And it may be helpful to set a reminder as you are learning to remember to use this, either on your phone or with notes around the house, to practice them often. I have a list on my phone that when anxiety overwhelms me, I can look at the list of strategies that I have instead of having to try and think my way out of things, especially in the middle of an anxiety attack, which is extremely hard to do. I know some people who practice this by setting an alarm on their phone that goes off maybe every 2 hours or every 4 hours that reminds them to spend 2 minutes practicing this type of breathing. So as we mentioned before, you also want to notice when you practice how you feel afterwards. When you notice that difference between the way your body felt when you're stressed and how your body feels after you've breathed, that's really important, because noticing how that feels in your body, it starts to create almost like a bookmark in your brain that you can remind yourself that this is what it feels like when I practice this type of breathing. So this is the first tool that we're going to put in our toolkit. This physiological sigh helps reduce the effects of anxiety and panic. So practice them often, remind yourself often to do them, and feel the benefits of having done them. So that's all I've got for this episode. Thank you for joining me today, and I hope that you've got something useful from this discussion. And if you have any questions you would like us to discuss on future episodes, then please email me at rethinkingmentalwellbeing@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you. So until then, go well, go in peace, have a great week, and we'll see you next time.
This Free FM podcast was brought to you with support from New Zealand On Air.